For generations, the nursery rhyme, "There was a crooked man," has captivated children with its whimsical imagery and playful tone. Yet beneath its innocent facade lies a rich tapestry of history, brimming with political intrigue, moral corruption, and the turbulent relationships that shaped a nation. Join me as we unravel the historical origins of this enduring rhyme, exploring the deep and shadowy undercurrents that flow beneath its simple verses. Welcome back, Darklings. Before delving into its origins, let's first examine the most widely recognised version of this rhyme. There was a crooked man, and he went a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence against a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a little crooked house. This rhyme first appeared in print in the Nursery Rhymes of England, a collection by James Orchard Halliwell, published in 1842. However, the publication also includes many other rhymes and stories that are significantly older. This suggests that the crooked man likely had a long history of being passed down via word of mouth before it was ever printed. Some suggest that the rhyme might be inspired by the town of Lavenham in Suffolk, about 70 miles northeast of London, renowned for its picturesque, half-timbered medieval houses. One notable example is the Crooked House, built in 1395 as part of a grand hall for a wealthy wool merchant. During the 14th and 15th centuries, Lavenham thrived as one of England's wealthiest towns, due to its prosperous wool trade and the production of its sought-after Lavenham blue cloth. With many merchants quickly amassing fortunes and hastily building houses, the wood they used wasn't always given enough time to dry. As the timber frame of the crooked house dried, it gradually twisted and contorted. By the time this occurred, Lavenham's wool industry was in decline. The merchants left, and without the funds to rebuild, the house remained crooked, possibly inspiring the nursery rhyme. But the term crooked might not refer to the whimsical houses of Lavenham, or the quirky imagery we associate from childhood. Historically, the term crooked has commonly been used to describe individuals who are corrupt, dishonest, and lacking in integrity. This gives rise to a theory suggesting that the rhyme references a 17th century Scottish nobleman embroiled in scandal and intrigue. Renowned for his controversial decisions and dubious alliances, his actions would ultimately lead to a shocking and brutal execution that reverberated through history. In the 1600s, the Covenanters were a Scottish group who believed they had a covenant with God to uphold a specific type of church known as the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. Presbyterianism is distinguished by its governance structure, which is managed by elected elders and ministers through assemblies, emphasising collective leadership rather than hierarchical control. Conflict ignited when King James VI, and later his son Charles I, attempted to impose Anglican practices on the Scottish Presbyterian Church. The Anglican Church of England was governed hierarchically by bishops appointed by the king, and stood as a symbol of royal authority and control. King Charles viewed religious uniformity as a way to solidify his power and unify his realms under a single church structure. In 1638, many Scots signed the National Covenant, pledging to resist the imposition of these Anglican practices. At the heart of this resistance was Sir Alexander Leslie, who became the Lord General of the Covenant Army and is often cited as the crooked man of the rhyme. In the rhyme, the Crooked Mile likely alludes to Leslie's military campaigns, specifically the Second Bishops' War in 1640. During this conflict, Leslie marched a Covenanter army across the border into England, ultimately capturing Newcastle. This campaign played a pivotal role in compelling King Charles I to engage in negotiations with the Covenanters. The crooked style in the rhyme is said to serve as a metaphor for the complex and challenging negotiations that followed. A stile is used to cross a boundary between two distinct pieces of land while keeping livestock contained. Likewise, the Treaty of Rippon, negotiated by General Leslie in 1640, functioned as a crucial bridge between England and Scotland. The Treaty of Rippon did not directly resolve the religious disputes that had sparked the bishops' wars, but established temporary peace and a framework for further negotiations. The treaty required King Charles I to pay the Scottish Covenanter army £850 per day, until a final settlement could be reached. This was a significant financial burden on the king and was intended to cover the expenses of the Scottish occupation of northern England. As part of the agreement, the Scottish Covenanters were permitted to occupy Northumberland and County Durham until a lasting resolution could be reached. Before this treaty, the king had ruled without Parliament for 11 years, a period known as the 11 Years' Tyranny. Charles I was a staunch advocate of the divine right of kings, the belief that monarchs are appointed by and accountable only to God, not to their subjects or any earthly authority. However, the treaty effectively forced the king to summon the Long Parliament, as he needed parliamentary approval for new taxes to meet the financial obligations imposed by the treaty. The summoning of the Long Parliament in November 1640 united Charles I's adversaries and sympathetic parliamentarians, aligning them with the Scottish Covenanters' cause. This convergence heightened tensions between the monarchy and Parliament, setting the stage for Charles's dramatic downfall. By 1641, King Charles I faced mounting pressure from both the English Parliament and the Scottish Covenanters, with his authority challenged on multiple fronts. In a bold move, Charles rewarded General Leslie with the titles of Lord Balgony and Earl of Leven, and appointed him captain of Edinburgh Castle. By honouring Leslie, Charles aimed to mitigate the hostility of the Scottish Covenanters and potentially secure their support, or at least their neutrality. However, in exchange for his titles and the wealth they brought, Leslie had to swear allegiance to the English crown, a decision that many viewed as morally compromised. This could explain why Leslie is portrayed as a crooked man in the rhyme, with his honours symbolised by the crooked sixpence. 2 years later, in 1643, as the English Civil War escalated, General Leslie had to navigate another tricky negotiation, or crooked stile. The Scottish Covenanters and the English parliamentarians, led by Oliver Cromwell, formed an alliance through the Solemn League and Covenant. This agreement united them against the royalist armies of King Charles I. Despite their common goal of defeating the king, the two groups had differing visions for the future of church governance, with the Scots advocating for Presbyterianism and many of Cromwell's followers favouring Puritanism. Many Scots perceived Leslie's alliance with the English parliamentarians as a betrayal of Scottish interests and a compromise of religious principles, reinforcing their view of him as crooked. They considered Oliver Cromwell and his followers a greater threat than the king himself. Cromwell was a polarising figure, admired by some for his decisive leadership, but reviled by others for his authoritarian rule and severe policies, especially in Ireland. Leslie's association with Cromwell and the parliamentarians, therefore, further tarnished his reputation among his critics, deepening their distrust and disapproval. The cat in the rhyme, therefore, could be a reference to Cromwell. King Charles I, who was captured and eventually executed by the parliamentarians, could be represented by the mouse. Thus, the crooked cat catching the mouse serves as a metaphor for Cromwell's triumph over the monarchy. The crooked house in the rhyme likely symbolises the ensuing intricate and strained relationship between Scotland and England, coexisting on the same island and sharing a border. The political landscape following the Civil War, particularly during the Commonwealth under Cromwell, was rife with continuous disputes and power struggles between the two. But what do you think? Does this rhyme originate in the town of Lavenham, or is the crooked man a representation of General Leslie? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if your thirst for nursery rhyme origins still lingers, be sure to subscribe and explore the rest of my channel. See you in a future video.